political is personal, and the personal is political. Language matters. When I was about 8 years old, I grew up in Haiti, and so I was in Haiti, and there was this beautiful older young lady that I really admired, and she represented everything that was cool and beautiful to me in a woman. And I would watch her go down the street. Needless to say, all the young boys in the neighborhood migrated towards her. And unfortunately, this being the 80s, before social media, so did the older men. And a lot of the older men, these older men had not gotten the memo that it is disgusting and creepy to come on to a teenager, about 15, 16. One day, I woke up with this really eerie feeling. It was too quiet, and I got outside, and you have to understand, Haiti in the 1980s, one block is your whole community. So everybody is in everybody's business. So when I feel quiet, when I hear quiet, I know something is up. So I creep out, and I started listening, and I heard older women talk about something that had happened the night before. It was that Dana had gotten raped. And at 8 years old, this was my first time hearing the word. In Creole, the word for rape is viol. But instead of hearing the sympathy and the galvanization for these women to do something, what I heard was that, she was a bitch, that she maybe deserved it, that she dressed particular ways, that welcome, she asked for it. In my 8-year-old body, I was petrified. This is a girl I admired. And as an older young lady, I'm hearing that there are things that could bring destruction to your body just because you're labeled as a bitch or as a whore. This is the time where it all started for me. This is when I can pinpoint that I realized the power that one word can have. And looking back now, I realized that I started really fighting in small ways. And today I fight in bigger ways, and in my personal and my professional life, to unearth all of the damages that language can do. Because, language matters. Language is this amazing system that has a power of transformation and subjugation. With one word, we can dehumanize, take someone's dignity, or we can lift them up and affirm. Think about it. All the words that we have that denigrate women, compare them to animals: cow, chick, heifer, bitch. All the words that denigrate men, compare them to women: pussy, douche, bitch, girl. All with the same narrative. For men, one word can take their dignity, make them be portrayed as weak. For women, you have this theme of, if you reduce to an animal, then you're violence-worthy, violence-inducing, rape-worthy. In the same way that the word viol, rape, and the word bitch, in my first 8-year-old body, joined together as association to condemn a young woman. And the political is personal. Dedicating our lives to unearthing these assumptions to language is very important because we want 8-year-olds, like I used to be, to feel safe in their bodies. You see, I just had a daughter. And for me, this is even more personal and even more political. So, when we think about language as this collective transmission system that perpetuates all our assumptions, community's bias, without even thinking about it, without a thought, tacit assumptions, when we think about that, we realize that the word bitch, that collective transmission system has worked quite well. Think about it. We went from using the word in anger and for shock value to seeing the word everywhere. And when we think about the word bitch, what are we really saying? At its basic level, right, a bitch is a female dog. Well, that would be bad enough, no matter how much we love dogs. In fact, we love dogs so much that we hardly use the word bitch in reference to dogs anymore. In contrast, we hear the word everywhere in our society. In fact, it was documented that from 1998 to 2007, in media, we went from using the word on TV, in in cable, in prime time television. We went from using the word first in 1997, around 400 times, to over 1,200 times in 2007. Exponentially more use of the word as we become more used to and tacitly endorse these meanings. Because when we think about the word bitch, what it's doing, it normalizes our assumption about women and permission for violence against their bodies. It's also armor-piercing. If we don't like that a woman is self-assertive, we call her a bitch. If we don't like the advances that we've made to a woman, we call her a bitch. If we think she's too squeal or strident, we call her a bitch. It also removes all other life-affirming linguistic alternatives. There are potential other words we can use, but because the word bitch comes so quickly and so naturally, we don't think of any other affirming words. So, in the case of Ice Cube, for example, much heralded writer, producer, talking about if you're a bitch, you're probably not going to like us. If you're a hoe, you probably don't like us, referring to the criticism of the movie Straight Outta Compton and the portrayal of women as bitches and such. He becomes kind of an example of how easily we accept the word, but also the underlying assumptions in the word, right? If you're a bitch, violence-inducing, rape-worthy. Think about that. So you might ask me, then what about women who use the word, right? That makes it okay. And for this, I tell you that attempts to flip words in our society have always been signs of the harm and damage that the word causes, not the solution to the underlying problem. So in the case of singer Rihanna, flipping the concept, bitch, you better have my money, she is using it as a form of empowerment. But if we understand the meaning of that expression, we know this was an expression that used to be used and often makes reference to pimps violently asking their money of prostitutes that they have under their domination. So as violence is being done to women's bodies, that expression is used. So Rihanna is using that word to try to flip it and empower herself and other women. However, her effort to flip it also speaks volume to the vilification and harm that happens to women on an everyday basis. And other examples of women flipping the word really speak to this as well. Tina Fey and Amy Poehler, referring to people calling candidate Clinton, Secretary candidate Clinton at the time, a bitch. Bitches get things done. This was their way of flipping the word. Now, they are making a point about how offensive the word can be and how destructive the word can be. And now think about the ways the word bitch is used to regulate individual. Y'all heard of resting bitch face? So the New York Times wrote an article about this phenomenon and has pictures of individual, quote unquote, in resting bitch face. Now, we're regulating facial expression, people. Facial expression. Because God forbid a woman wouldn't want to smile all the time. Compare this to our use of the N-word. With the N-word, we rightfully have done a good job regulating. Now, it's still used, but there are repercussions for the use of the word. We are now trying to send message deliberately about how destructive the N-word is. But when we use the word bitch, none of that repercussion. When it's used on TV routinely, even the characters in the script, we don't see any built-in for repercussions for the use of the word. That's powerful. So you might ask me, what should we do? What can be done? And I say, there are three simple things you should keep in mind when you use language and words as destructive, that as bitch, that historically are laden with denigrating meaning. One is you should be aware of vulnerabilities, that certain words target and make light or even take advantage of vulnerabilities inherent in people, in their stories, right? Like bitch target women and causes further devaluation in a context of historical denigration. Two, think about cross-sectionality, that even though there are different groups all around the world and even in this country, that we have a potential for coalition building. So that with language, when we are careful, we can build coalition and become stronger rather than divide. Three, be deliberate. Be deliberate in your choice of word, particularly so that you can work to eradicate all vestiges of sexism and move us forward. Because as we are using language now, we are setting gender equity back as opposed to move it forward. So those are lofty goals. How do we do this? I say there are two tools, two basic things we can do. Before we use certain words, ask ourselves, what assumptions am I making? Two, how do I determine whether this is the kind of world I want to create? Is this the kind of gender bias-free world I want to create through this language, through the use of this word? And you might think about it and say, it might be funny, it might get my anger out, but it's destructive to everyone, so I won't use that word. And this is really the beginning of us questioning everything on an individual basis and on an institutional basis, this accountability test, so that through our language, we communicate a different type of message than what we've been doing now. And why is this important? Because the continuous destruction of society through language, denigration of individuals, men, women, or otherly gendered, is hurting us. And the next generation is watching us and needs us to do better. So before you use the word, think about it and use that accountability test. Thank you.